Welcome to Market Access Today. Please get ready to be captivated by expert insights and explore new frontiers. Traditionally, I want to thank Econics for their unconditional support. Now let's get started. Today, I have Abdallah Nassereddine with me. Welcome, Mr. Nassereddine. He is an economic attaché, Embassy of Lebanon to the United States of America. He is the board advisor and in-house chief economist at International Center for Trade, Transparency, and Monitoring Council, where we're going to be mentioning as ICTM for the rest of the interview. Today, we are hosting him to provide insights on Italy implementing new strategies to strengthen medicine supply chains by June 2024 update, and perhaps share opinions or expected developments in neighboring countries in the region. But first, I want to give you the floor to tell us more about yourself and your impressive career journey, please.
Hello, Oznur. Thank you for hosting me in your Market Access Today series of webinars, hosting experts. It's a privilege for me to be talking here to your members and to try to provide insights to some experts also who are listening to this webinar. I would try my best during that webinar to try to be as useful as possible and to highlight some of the main aspects of what I do and what the International Center of Trade Transparency do and some of the latest related to the supply chain in Europe. Concerning me and my career, I'm actually an economist who studied at the University of Kent in Canterbury in the UK. So I hold a PhD from there. And I also studied in Ireland and at Dublin City University. And I also studied in France. So I have this kind of Dublin, London, UK, and France education background, adding to that to my country of origin, Lebanon, where I come from, where I studied. So this gives you a very brief background of my educational background. On the other side, when it comes to work, many people, I will be very brief on that, but I really want to highlight that many people try to plan their career in a very critical manner, which is exactly what I haven't done. And some other people have a career that is actually happening just randomly, just happening by more and more opportunities, and you end up having a career that you haven't planned. My career is more like the second one. So it's never been planned. It has been opportunities that come that I take and I keep moving forward. And because of that, I have different types of background when it comes to career as well. Academic, a big part of it, academic development, accreditation of university, which is that is part that is pretty irrelevant here. And then you have the more relevant part from my academic background, my economic background, is basically my job as an economic attaché at the Embassy of Lebanon in Washington, D.C. And so I practically work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of my country. We have a directorate of economics, and I report to that specific directorate at the ministry, working at the embassy. And as you all know, an economic attaché has a very clear kind of mission, and his job is one of the most important idea about our job is to be the ears and eyes and ears of our public and private institution in the other country. So try to look for it's a kind of a business intelligence job where you try to find new opportunities for the private companies back home and try to report on any new issue economic that could be relevant to your government back home, that could make a difference somehow, or could be a challenge, or could be any new issue that could be arising that you should be reporting on. And on the other aspect of the job is also to be kind of an economic advisor to the ambassador when it comes to any kind of meeting where economic would be involved. In a more concrete way, to get into the idea of market access today and your member itself. So concrete aspect of the job itself is to promote export and to attract investment to the country, which is basically what everyone wants to do.
Sure.
And all countries try to do the same, exactly the same idea. They do it in a different way. So this is the economic attaché part from my career. And to be a bit faster, also, I also, as you mentioned in your introduction, I am on the board of the International Center of Trade Transparency. And I'm also a senior economist for the International Trade Council, which is actually the NGO that has the ICTM as a commercial subsidiary. I'm going to explain that a bit later during the webinar. So I'm a senior economist here and the board advisor. What does that mean? That means that during the annual conference of the International Trade Council, the Go Global Awards, so we tend to support the International Trade Council in the big conference in many different ways, logistically, in terms of studies, panels, organizing, moderating, and all those kind of things, and even mobilizing people to come to the conference as well. The other aspect of it is to write some kind of policy research somehow, books, contributing to some books. So with the International Center of Trade Transparency, I have a book on mitigating the risk in supply chain, and I've contributed to a book related to going abroad, and sometimes it's just to have an editing job for some of those books and some articles. This is for the second part of my background, and other than that, I'm definitely, I mean, a very substantial part of what I do also is economic. Not consultancy. When I say consultancy, I usually consider myself working for the private sector. I don't know why. It's more a kind of economic advice for some governments in the GCC, and I was economic advisor for several ministers as well back home. So mainly on issues related to policy design, implementation, and try to be innovative in terms of designing those type of policy facing some new challenges in the country, and more specifically in the areas of here in the GCC, economic diversification, and mainly when it comes to export diversification. And that's it.
Thank you for sharing your vibrant and detailed career journey with us. It appears you have a demanding schedule, traveling frequently between regions and the US. So best of luck with all the significant responsibilities you carry on your shoulders. So my next question is, could you describe the International Center for Trade Transparency, which we call ICTM? What are this organization's primary functions, and what services and benefits do it offer to its members?
The International Center of Trade Transparency is a commercial subsidiary of the International Trade Council. The International Trade Council, which many people confuses with the International Trade Center. They are both ITCs, but there is a center and councils at the end that make them different. So the International Trade Council is a legacy NGO, and the NGO has thousands and thousands of members in 179 countries, and they have 80 countries members in the International Trade Council as government agencies related to export and government agencies. This is why during the Go Global Awards conferences of the International Trade Council, usually the audience you have are mainly those promotion agencies from all over the world, because this is what the ITC as International Trade Council is mainly focused on. So the ITC has a commercial subsidiary that was established, I think, almost 2 years ago, and that's the International Center of Trade Transparency. The center itself came after a brainstorming session that came up with the idea that we really need, after COVID and all the supply chain disruption that happened, that you remember, that are still here actually, that there is no an organization that is able to put all those types of variation and disruption that are happening together into one specific platform to help governments and businesses to have more visibility and transparency over what's happening in terms of disruptions. That was the main question. And yeah, there are many other softwares, but in terms of a software that is based on machine learning and artificial intelligence, and I will also explain a little bit about that. There is a gap in the market. So the ITC has decided through the ICTM to develop that product or that software platform that could do that job. So if you want, let's put it that way, the ICTM was created to create a software platform. Okay, so that software platform is called Adam FTD. Adam FTD will be, I'm sure today none of your members have heard about it, but I'm sure in a year or two everyone would have heard about it, because it's going to be a revolution in the sense, in the world of supply chain, in the sense that we provide immediate solutions to very challenging problems in the world of supply chain. So what the ICCM would do is that it aims mainly as an organization to if you think of supply chain as a concept, in a very simple way, a supply chain is more, you have two risks involved in supply chain mainly, if you want, the risk of supply and the risk of the chain itself. So basically one is a bit static about where do we bring that product from, and the other one is more dynamic, something moving as a chain. And usually mitigating the risk of the supply part, which is a bit static about where you get the product from as a supplier, and finding alternative to that supplier is one way of mitigating that risk, is way easier than mitigating the other risk that is more related to the chain moving and more complicated actually. So the idea of the International Center of Trade Transparency, if you look at throughout the visual illustration of that supply chain, is to try to shed light on it, is to try to make it clearer, more transparent, and easier for people to function in that world that has so many different problems, turbulences. So if I am a business and I use Adam FTD, how would I benefit from it? That's a question. Okay, so I will be able to have a greater ability to identify different suppliers. This is the first part of what I was talking about. So okay, I buy today, for example, I'm Lebanese, so I always have to take food examples. So if you want to buy, for example, tahini from Lebanon, sesame paste from Lebanon, and you have a supplier, and there are problems in Lebanon, and you feel like, okay, it's not as safe for me now to import from Lebanon, so let's try to find an alternative supplier for tahini. Then Adam FTD, as many other software, I presume, would be able to tell you who are the other possible suppliers of tahini around that region itself, not very far from it. So this is the first aspect of it. The second one is, okay, what are the alternative routes of importing that tahini that is actually, first of all, more safe? Okay, so we want a safer option throughout the whole route of the product. The container will have to all the way. And that will have to take into consideration political instability, as we said. It will have to take into consideration the change in regulation that are happening in all those different countries. And it will take into consideration aspects related to economic fluctuations as well. So all these types of data related to compliance, natural disasters, political instability would be integrated into that software in order to give you alternative solutions when you face a problem. So that's the whole idea behind it. I hope I made it as clear as possible. But because that world of supply chain in terms of, for example, disasters and political instability is always moving and changing. So what is helping at this level is the idea of machine learning, artificial intelligence, that will be able to provide those smart solutions that take into consideration all those changes that are happening immediately. So where do we stand at this stage when it comes to Adam FTD? The software platform will be, the preliminary version of it will be launched free for the International Trade Council members. So let's say, for example, your members are members in the ITC or International Trade Council, and then they will have access to the preliminary version of ADAM FTD by end of August. And that would be kind of a beta version of the software that has data related to products, customers' names, different. The potential of some products to be sold where, the details of the name of the owners of companies, those type of data that you can find mainly in bill of ladings. Okay, in terms of volume, quantity, what is exported from here to there, competitive analysis about those very basic kind of thing. And then as we go from September till November, the full software should be released and launched, and that would be people will be able to use it on a subscription basis as per use mainly. And I think there will be different types of pricing strategy when it comes to have a full package and different access to the software platform itself. And there would be a kind of a big announcement about the software itself during the Go Global Awards of the International Trade Council that usually take place in November. And I'm not sure where it's going to be based this year, but this is a kind of an overview of ICTM.
Thank you very much. It seems as if the members and who are the subscribers will be able to reach out to big data, and it can be filtered, it can be customized, and they will be able to have sustainable data and information while they're using this infrastructure. So if we come to the hot topic of today, I would like to move to the new European regulation that is published. So how will the recent recommendations introduced by the European regulatory body impact the supply chains of essential medicines? And what measures are being proposed to enhance the availability and address potential risks for these critical pharmaceuticals?
So we're talking about supply chain here, and more specifically about, as you know, the ICTM covers. You can. I mean, I'm saying that to your members. If they sign up for the ICTM, they will be able also to have the kind of all the news happening related to supply chain disruption in the world. We cover that in some kind of newsletter that is usually sent to members. So pretty useful. This was one of the highlights that has also been mentioned in the newsletter related to the supply chain in medicine products in Europe in general. And as I was mentioning earlier, when it comes to the supply chain, we want it to be obviously stable, and we want it to be actually safe, and we want to avoid any type of shortages in that kind of chain. And if you think of that regulation of the European Commission, the main idea of it is safety, is actually ensuring safety and addressing shortages. Those are the two main aspects of it. So in order to make sure that we don't have shortages and the products are safe, in terms of regulations, we'll have to establish to have a kind of regulation related to that. European Commission actually, I think in 2023, has enacted a kind of some kind of reform paper in order to say, okay, we're going to address those type of problems, mainly when it comes to critical medicines in Europe, to make sure that we don't have shortages and they are safe. So in order to do that, if you want the executive body called the Executive Steering Group of shortages and safe medicines, MSSG actually was actually established in order to, if you want to implement that kind of reform related to critical medicines so MSSG is not by itself doesn't come up with any kind of new regulations or laws. It's more executive body of that whole thing we're talking about. And of course, the idea here we'll talk about policy design in the European Commission is try to come up with how are we going to design that policy to solve that type of specific problems related to critical medicines in order not to have shortages. So they came up with MSSG, and they have decided, the European Commission with the European Medicine Agency and other country agencies in Europe, to come up with a union list or a list of critical medicine. They started with that. That list has actually, in its first version, has more than 200 products. And they initially worked on more than 600 products, and they ended up with 200. And two criteria were taken to include a medicine into that list of critical. And I'm talking about those details for a specific purpose. Is try to understand how sometimes the problems that arise are solved by trying to design them in a specific way. So here, the first idea was, okay, let's first decide about the list itself. So we have 200 medicines on that list, and how we're going to select the medicines on that list. What are the medicine that could be called critical? And here there are two aspects of it. One of them is therapeutic, about their importance in treatment, and the other one is that they don't have alternatives. Okay, and these two aspects make the product itself that actually medicine critical or not. So these 200 critical medicine that you can find online are actually are those that are subject to that specific kind of regulation you were talking about, Oznur. So what the MSSG would do is try to make sure that we don't have shortages and we have safety in this kind of products. So the MSSG itself needed to identify those type of possible shortages in the market. So it established another entity which has more like the role of monitoring the market and getting information from the market about shortages. And they have issued some kind of recommendations to distributors and sellers and in Europe of medicines, and about some kind of, if you want, guidelines that would actually help in terms of avoiding some types of disruptions. So if you have any of your members today working in the field of medicine distribution, let's say, the whole idea is that those recommendations will have a very big implications on them, mainly if they are distributing critical medicines. And those actually are related to, in terms of increasing the manufacturing capacity, so we have more supply. The other thing is related to stockpiling, so you will have to hold a higher stock. So if you have any kind of problems and in terms of demand increasing or decreasing in terms of quantity, so you will have to put in place a system that will allow you to detect and anticipate in advance potential shortage that could happen. And that would be based on a kind of looking at your previous data that you have and try to see episodes of disruption that happen, and based on that, in order to see what could happen in the future in terms of projections, in order to be able to anticipate those. And it's a kind of an alarming system that they want to put in place, so we can. But in terms of implication, one of them is a more long-term aspect, which is more about increasing the manufacturing facility, and that would come with some funding. And the other aspect is more short-term and medium-term, which is actually more about implementing some kind of measures to actually anticipate and face some kind of disruption that could apply to the supply chain. And on the top of that, those medicines, whether they are imported or manufactured at home, if they're manufactured at home, they are basically also manufactured from raw materials So the same also will apply to the raw material that are importing from abroad when it comes to regulation and recommendations, in order to make sure that the supply chain is pretty stable for those type of products.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nassereddine. I think all our audiences, they really do understand what ICTM Council is and what we should be expecting with the new regulation that has been published in June 2024 and how it's going to be affecting the supply chain for the critical medicine. So, and thank you very much in the meantime for giving us the infrastructure detail about the ADAM system, how it's going to help to the audiences and also the members. So it's just like the first part is until August is going to be free, and then it's going to be the beta, and then we will be seeing the original subscription-based platform with the upcoming months, maybe starting with September. So I will be also asking you to join us when those times comes to give more information to our members and audiences. Maybe they will be much more interested to use the ADAM's infrastructure. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Oznur, and thank you to your members for listening to us. And I wish you all the best at market access today. Thank you, Oznur.
Thank you.